Hello, all my artists. Today we are going to be starting our printmaking process to print our backgrounds for our Kahindi Wiley and Amy Sherald inspired portrait project. We're going to need our painted background paper, a jelly plate, printing ink, a brayer to roll our ink out, and we're also going to have an assortment of stencils to help us with the designs for the background. So let's get started on seeing how we can take this printmaking process to turn our backgrounds into a Kahindi Wiley type painting. A stencil is a tool that artists use to help them produce an image or a design. The open space of the stencil, so this hexagon shape, that is where the ink will come through to reveal that pattern over and over again. On this paper, the stencil had the object of a flower, so the orange ink came through those shapes that created the flower on the background paper. When picking a stencil, you want to think about which design looks the most interesting to you. Do you like the shapes? Do you like the lines? How would it look repeating all over your page? And then go with that one. In order to prepare our jelly printing plate, we need to get our ink ready. I'm going to put a small dot of ink on the acrylic sheet beside you, and I'm going to use the brayer, and I'm going to roll it up and down so I can start spreading out that ink to cover my brayer. Then I'm going to turn it to the side to keep spreading it out. So I'm going to go up and down, and then I'm going to turn it and go side to side. And this way I'm distributing the ink in a small square area. I want to make sure that the ink covers my entire brayer. So I see some bald spots. I'm going to go back and move the ink up and down again. I want to make sure when I'm putting the ink up and down to get it on my brayer that I'm not doing it too much. If you do it too much, then it will actually dry the ink out and you will not have any to use for your plate to print. Now that I have enough on, I'm going to go ahead and ink my block. I'm going to place my stencil on top of my jelly plate. I'm going to make sure my brayer has enough ink, and I'm going to press really hard and roll my brayer up and down all where my stencil is on the plate. I might need to go back for a little bit more ink, and I'm going to re-roll those areas that are a little bit more faded and don't have quite as much orange. I'll give you a close-up. You can see some of those little diamonds aren't all the way solid like some of the others, so I can go get a little ink and re-ink those areas. Then I'm going to pick up my stencil and I'm going to need to move it to get that design all across my jelly plate. And keep re-inking until your plate is covered. When your ink has been distributed all across your plate, you're going to get your sheet of paper and make sure that you flip the painted side over because that's the side we're printing on. You're going to place it carefully on top of the printing plate, and then you're going to massage with your hands all over the jelly printing plate so that you transfer the ink onto the sheet of paper. When you have massaged all of the sides, you can pull up your paper to reveal your print. So let's talk about some tips and tricks to solve some problems that we may encounter when we get to our workspace today. When you get to the jelly plate and you notice that there might be some ink that shows a design that you do not want, we need to know how we're going to get rid of that ink so that we can choose the stencil that we do want. We're going to grab a piece of extra paper. It's going to be a cream or manila color. We're going to rub that all over our jelly plate, and it's going to actually pick up the ink that we do not want there. I know that it still looks like the ink is there, however, that extra sheet of paper removed that layer that we did not want. So then we can pick the stencil that we do want to use for our design. On any stencil you pick, you want to make sure you're rolling the brayer to put the ink inside the spaces that are open. So for this stencil, I want to make sure I'm only pushing on the parts where the flower object shows. What happens with this stencil is you're going to need to pick it up and move it carefully to the different areas of your jelly printing plate to get that flower design to repeat. Please do not turn it over. We want to keep the stencil up with the ink showing so that we don't put all that ink on the back side of our plate because that would change the image. You can see on the sides of that stencil where I accidentally got my brayer, those lines will show up on our printing plate. It will add a little bit to our design, it's okay. But you want to be careful to only be putting the ink inside that open space on the stencil. Once again, grab your background paper, line it up very carefully over your Gelli printing plate, and massage all the way around your paper, making sure you do not lift or move it until you are all the way done pressing it down. Pull it up and reveal your design. All right, let's get to printmaking.